They're so damn awesome, man.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Yeah.
That's pretty good, actually. Usually I come to open mics because I don't sing or dance. I tell stories. 'Cause that's the only thing I'm pretty good at. I usually try to tell stories that are inspirational, stuff that's happened to me in my life. And I want to tell you a story today about the most positive guy I've ever met in my life. One thing, if you know anything about me, I like to travel. I go all over the place. I will drive 100 miles to take a picture of a 40-foot fork in the middle of a field because I'm just a weird guy. I like to take pictures of weird things that most people would go by in their own hometowns, and then I post them on Facebook, and my friends tell me that I have the craziest life ever. There's this place called roadsideamerica.com. If you ever get bored, you put in an address or a zip code, and it will show you all the weird stuff that I'm talking about in any area, pretty much in every state. And at this point, roadsideamerica.com should be calling me up and taking pictures of my stuff because I got more stuff on it than they do. And one time, just because I got nothing crazy to do, we were down in Pennsylvania. And we were in Erie, Pennsylvania, indoor water park, which, side note, you shouldn't be 40-something years old and going to water parks when you're scared of heights. Especially when you think this is what you should do to try to get away from being afraid of heights. Shooting down a tube at 400 miles an hour in the darkness is not the way to go about it. But I spent, 4 terrifying, exciting hours there, and we decided to look on roadsideamerica.com. And we found this place that at first, when it was described to me, it just sounded kind of weird, And it was called Randyland, and it was in the middle of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And you hear a lot of weird things about Pittsburgh, and I had never been, so, we decided to go. And one thing cool about Pittsburgh is that's where Mr. Rogers was from. And everybody who can relate with Mr. Rogers, there's a 10, right? Exactly, there's a 10-foot statue of Mr. Rogers in the bay of Pittsburgh. That's worth going to Pittsburgh alone, just to hang out with Mr. Rogers. But Pittsburgh was awesome, One thing about me, as a lot of people know, is I kind of had a kind of crazy life that I've been in places before maybe you shouldn't be in at 2 o'clock in the morning, and neighborhoods that I can identify that as we drive through the neighborhood that this is probably not the safest place to be. And we started to look for Randyland, and as we're driving into Pittsburgh, I realized this is a place I really probably shouldn't be. I'm thinking, do we have anything in the car that if I get out of the car that I have a weapon so I can feel secure? I mean, I'm way, way too old to be in this neighborhood and way, way scared at this point. But all of a sudden, going through the deep ghetto, abandoned buildings, just the shadiest thing you can imagine, we pulled up on Randyland. And Randyland was just a big house on the corner, And we decided to venture out and get out of the van. And we started to check out Randyland. And Randyland was painted every color you can imagine. It had a mural on the side of the building that was a small mural of that whole area. Everywhere that you looked on this building, no matter where you looked on this building, there was a sign or a painting or a piece of sculpture. It was just the most amazing thing you could ever imagine. And as we're walking around the house, it was found out it was 2 houses, and there was like a courtyard inside of it. And inside this courtyard, in the middle of the ghetto, was the most colorful, artistic, most beautiful thing that I could never describe to you, and I'm trying to describe to you now. And it was amazing. I mean, it was just amazing what this guy had done in the middle of all this muck. And most times I get to see these sculptures and this stuff. I don't really get to meet the artist or anything. And as we're taking pictures, here comes this quirky little guy coming up the thing with his little bag of food. I think he had his lunch in it. And he had a little pair of glasses on. And you could tell that he didn't fit in. He didn't fit in there. He probably doesn't fit in a lot of places. He just looked like that little quirky guy. And he walked up to me and he said, "Hi, I'm Randy from Randyland. I want to give you a picture card." He didn't give me a business card. He gave me a picture card. And on the picture card, which I still have in my pocket, was a picture of Randyland and everything I described. And then Randy decided, he introduced himself, and he decided to let us in on why, how, and what happened 30 years ago when he decided to paint this building and change it over. He told us how he had no money. He's a waiter. That's all he does. Everything in Randyland on those 2 houses was done on tips.
Everything he's ever done, he's done on his own terms. They told him he wouldn't be able to buy that building. He convinced the bank that he should sell him the building for $10,000 with a credit card. He got the building, and he made Randyland. And talking to this guy, we're standing in the rain in the middle of the ghetto. I kind of forgot all that. And then he took us inside, and he said, I want to show you something I don't get to show many people. And he had gotten these slates that came off of a roof of a house that somebody donated to him. And he had 365 of them. Each one represented that day that he woke up and how he felt. If he felt shitty, he made a weird face, you know. If he felt good, he made a good face. But they were the 365 days of Randy. And it was really cool because one thing about Randy is he had one blue eye and one brown eye. So every one of these things had a blue eye and a brown eye. They represented his life. Now here's a guy who lived in the ghetto. He was told never to go on the west side of Pittsburgh. His mother warned him for all his life, don't ever go over there. Well, that's the first thing he did when he got old enough to go over there. And he took a place that was so dark. He said when he cleaned up the yard, they found 1,500 hypodermic needles because that was the biggest heroin district in that city. And I told you, the neighborhood wasn't good. I knew going in, man, I was like, shit, I'm scared. But when you saw Randyland, you forgot all about that. And the more he talked and the more he told me, I always noticed Randy never stopped smiling. He never stopped smiling no matter what he was talking about. He was telling us about how bullet holes went through the garbage cans. And it's a good reminder it's the city. That's Randy's take on it. I wanted to get back in the van and go home, you know, because I was scared to death. Randy told us he started 80 gardens all over Pittsburgh. And as we drove out of Randyland and we said goodbye, I made sure I got a picture because I don't think I could meet a more positive person in the world. That no matter what they told him, he overcame that. No matter what they told him or what they said he couldn't do, he found his own way to do it. He's a waiter. I mean, he's just a waiter. And most people would just say, well, he's just a waiter. But he made a whole land all of his own. It impressed this guy who lived 6 hours away. And you know what the funny part was, is when we finally got done talking, he said, how'd you find Randyland? And I explained it to him, and he was the most ecstatic thing that I would look him up on the internet and then find him on the internet. And I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world that I could find him in the middle of the ghetto. And that's the story of Randy Gilson, who I think is probably the most positive guy that I'll ever meet in my life. Thanks a lot.